Everyone, this video serves as a very brief introduction to the unit for analysis. Now, as I mentioned in the overall introduction video, analysis just means that we're going to be both examining and interpreting different texts. Now, for examining, that means that we're going to be inspecting in detail, that we're going to be reading critically, we're going to be noticing different features that the author is using, the creator of the film, whatever it is. We're going to be paying attention to how it is they are making their text. Okay? Now we're also going to be interpreting text. And interpreting means that we're going to explain the meaning behind the text. We're going to ask ourselves as readers and consumers, why? Why did they make this text? What is the point? What's the argument that they are trying to convey? And how does that impact us, influence us as consumers, as readers, etc., etc. Okay? So just a brief overview of everything that's going to be happening in this unit. Once again, I want to encourage you to pay attention to the dates that you see in your syllabus and not the dates that you are seeing in this video. So for They Say, I Say, you're going to be going over the introduction. You're going to be realizing how to talk about what other people are saying, particularly within text. So this will be a lot about embedding different quotations and how to discuss those quotations. We're going to talk a lot about how to summarize different arguments that an argument is making and different writing tactics that we can do to accomplish this, and also quoting people at their words. So lots of times we get in habits of just pulling quotes from particular texts, articles, films, just because we're required to do it. So what we want to focus on is choosing the correct quote, analyzing it properly, interpreting its meaning in order to convey our own unique ideas. Okay, so we'll be doing this through a very short documentary from the New York Times called The Price of Certainty, whether or not that's something we can actually achieve, and what is the price we are paying for certainty. And lots of times the texts that I'm going to assign to you are purposely a little bit controversial, because what I found is that kind of spurs students to talk about these things more. Oftentimes we've got more energy to write about them. So if you watch something, read something, see something in my class that sparks a little bit of, frustration with you or anger with you, that's awesome. Use that for fuel to write about and to talk about in class, as long as we're doing it in a respectful manner. Okay? We'll also listen to another podcast from Revisionist History Podcast. This is a podcast by the prolific writer Malcolm Gladwell. It's called The Big Man Can't Shoot. So this is a podcast about Wilt Chamberlain and his free throw shooting, which you're thinking, maybe, I don't give a rip about basketball. First of all, I'm sorry if that's you. But second of all, it's a podcast that anyone would find enjoyable. And we're going to talk about the motivations for the different things that Wilt Chamberlain did for his free throws, which sounds wild, but just hang with me. It's interesting. We'll talk about the motivations behind that. What's the argument? What's the evidence that Malcolm Gladwell uses to make his argument, and why it matters overall? So we'll listen to another pair of podcasts from the New York Times called Cancel Culture, Parts 1 and Part 2. This is a fun one just because it's so controversial, and everyone has thoughts about cancel culture, right? So we'll talk about cancel culture. What is it? What's the argument that the podcast is making? What's the point? How is this impacting us as a society? So we're going to examine and interpret all of these things. And the last thing that we'll do, the last text that we'll examine that will spur us into your essay, we're going to watch an episode of the TV show Mr. Robot, which makes a very clear argument. So we're going to watch it in detail, we're going to examine it, and then as a class we'll have discussions where we interpret its meaning, and you might have a different variant than what I think or what your peers think, which is completely fine as long as it's grounded in evidence. And then we'll write your essay, which is an analysis, or what you're going to be doing is examining and interpreting Mr. Robot Episode 1. And that's what's happening for Unit 1 analysis, examining and interpreting different texts and learning how to write and talk about these things effectively. Okay? All right. I'll see you all in class.